here, now that I figured out how to turn the camera around, or on YouTube. It's also getting the stream. It's also on YouTube on my channel. Just give me a second, posting it. Hi, my channel. Here I go. I'm gonna share the link on Twitter. Okay, so let's get Twitter here. I have the computer, that's why I'm looking up. Um, streaming through. Yay, typos are my thing. Okay, hashtag Game of Thrones. Hashtag Arya Stark. I want to start with this. Actually, these are the two subjects I want to start with. Arya Stark, um, Avengers. Let's put one hashtag. MCU. And for the people that may not know what it is, MNL48. It's um, the capitals for an idol group from Philippines called Manila 48, and I will explain later about that. Okay, like you can leave if you are not interested at any moment. And then Aki-P is the nickname for Yasushi Akimoto, who is a content creator, if you want to call him like this. Okay, he's related to the idol group. Okay, so I'm back. Um, well, why I wanted to do another Periscope, but I promised I wouldn't talk about Yamaguchi Maho and her friends like anymore. Like this subject is done, even though troubles continue, and I'm glad that there's a lot of backlash about that. And I didn't expect that one of my replies on Twitter, due to the last episode of Game of Thrones, blew a little bit up. Of course, it didn't blow up like when a tweet goes viral, but I'm getting nice feedback on it, not just likes and retweets, but also replies and suggestions. And it's related to one of the characters, to Arya Stark. I promise this is gonna be spoiler free, um, most likely because uh, most people probably still haven't watched either the last episode of Game of Thrones or even the whole series, and they want to watch it once it's complete. And also Avengers, the Endgame movie. There's a lot of people that still probably haven't got time to go there. I'm just gonna talk about kind of like what makes those different universes and what makes the characters. So the subject about Arya Stark, it's one of the trending topics from yesterday. I haven't checked out today's trending topics. I hope it dried a little bit because it was a really, yeah, a little bit upsetting or annoying, if you want to say, that they were using um, the adjective Mary Sue. Well, it's not an adjective actually, it's vocabulary from people that like to read and take the reading experience beyond what any normal reader would do when we start talking about ships and OTPs and types of characters. Like the word Mary Sue comes into specifically for female characters, even though maybe we can apply that to other male characters as well in the history of writing histories. That means that the character has it all way too easy. In Chinese, in the light web novels, the Chinese light web novels, the word will be having the protagonist halo, it would be similar. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but yeah, they always talk about the protagonist halo. But being a Mary Sue, it's beyond that, because you can have the protagonist halo and still not be much a Mary Sue. It means that you have everything served in a silver platter, that not only you're beautiful, but everything you do turns out to be right. Even if you stumble into a little bit of problems, they get solved quickly, or someone else solves them for you. And I like a video from one of the content creators I love to watch in YouTube, because she is Chinese, and she likes a lot different types of storytelling. She defines herself as a junkie on storytelling. Her YouTube and internet name is Avenue X, like an avenue with an X at the end, an X if you don't see it from here. And she has a channel, and I remember watching a video about the Mary Sue syndrome. Only that I haven't found it today when I went through her channel, because she reorganized a little bit. So I cannot post the link. Sorry. I hope it was a video that she took down, maybe, and not um, part of a different video, because then I would get crazy trying to find about. She was talking about certain period dramas and fantasy dramas on China, like I think it was mostly related to Legend of Fuyao, but probably it was also related to the previous drama that Yang Mi, the actress, did uh, earlier, and that was aired almost kind of a year before Legend of Fuyao was released. That was called 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. That's the short name of it, or The Eternal Love. There's another drama with that name, so I prefer to call it 10 Miles, short of the short. And she was kind of talking about how most of the times in those period dramas, that most are based on light web novels, they have this Mary Sue syndrome, that most of the male characters fall in love with them, and they get even obsessed with the girl, and the girl always gets out of any troublesome situation, flawlessly or not, but she always gets out without having much skills. Or even if she's supposed to be a super powerful character, it never gets depicted when the character gets transcripted into TV screen, or a screen in short. Um, I started reading a lot of this sort. Well, there's a genre, but there's a varied different split genres from that last year. And yes, a few of them from the genre I usually read, it's more close to what would be maybe a certain type of shoujo manga. Um, it's it's true. Like a lot of these characters that transmigrate or reincarnate have a little bit of the Marisu syndrome. Suddenly, they are super powerful, and nothing they do turns against them, or they get any backlash from any scams they do, or any scams that other people try to do against them, and they just turn it around and against those people. Um, Related into Games of Thrones, when yesterday everybody was talking about Arya being the Mary Sue, I totally disagree with that. Like when you come through a lot of different novels, not just like Chinese web novels. I like to read young adult, and I don't read much anything else, and manga. There's a bunch and a lot of Mary Sue characters out there, and I don't agree that the word itself is sexist, but when you try to push that word into a character that doesn't qualify to be a Mary Sue, just because you pieced a female character gets to do business, then it becomes a sexist term. But it's most likely because it doesn't apply to the character. We can talk about Arya Stark, or we can talk about Captain Marvel if you want. Like that was another thing that was mostly criticized. Like a lot of people say she didn't have an arc, and there's a nice, beautiful Twitter thread over there. I retweeted that weeks or a month ago, and today I liked it again because it popped up again in my timeline. And she explained that she does has an arc. It only that it's not your usual arc that you would like because she's a female, so she has to be a damsel in distress from the beginning almost till the end. So that's the same thing with Arya. Arya, it's not your usual female, and by saying usual female, I mean the stereotype most societies have, because it's not what females are, it's what you want as a very patriarchal society, females to be. That's what you want them to be. You want them to not be free and not be independent and not be powerful on their own ways. And that's another way to get us oppressed through history. And it's been proven thousands and millions of times through different times and societies and countries and different places on the earth. So Aries is not a Mary Sue. Of almost a lot of things, she's not. I remember, like, it was 8 years ago, we were talking about the books. I don't think at the time the series were released, or maybe just the first season or the first couple of seasons, and we were discussing the books because I started reading the books really late. Like a friend told me, like, you must read this, and she passed me the books, and in 2 weeks I had read the three books, the three first books from A Song of Ice and Fire, and I went to buy the fourth in the same type of edition my friend liked it, and I gifted to her on her birthday, and she told me, like, you can read it first because I don't have time to read it now. So in kind of 3 4 weeks I read the four books, and when the fifth came out I just went and bought it in English, because the other books I wrote them in in Spanish, in the Spanish translation. So we were discussing the books, and um, a pal, you can say a colleague. He's an artist. Okay, he's one of the people I frequent when we go to the comic and the manga conventions. He was telling me that he didn't hate Arya, but he didn't quite like her too much because she always got everything done magically done. She was too lucky, and he saw her last kind of like a type of character that didn't have many hardships, and like she was always lucky, and it was kind of like something funny for him in the history, but he didn't take her much seriously because she was kind of, I don't know how to put it in English, like passing through the story like she was just not doing quite much, nothing, just having fun. And I highly disagreed at the time. I think we already had the fifth books, the five books, sorry. And I told him, like, Arya is not like she's passing by the story and getting everything magically done, and that she's super lucky with things, because she actually kind of like has it rough from the very start. She has it rougher than Sansa. If you have read the books and not watched the series, you missed on the way some characters have been transformed in order to make them likable on the audiences. And one of the characters that's been most transformed is Sansa Stark. Like, Sansa is not that wise. Sansa is not that, how to put it, sensible. She doesn't react the same way when she hits the fan on the books than when she does on the series. She doesn't reflect not the same way at all on the books. Even until a certain point, she doesn't reflect. She's still the spoiled little brat she is when the books begin. And when the book starts, Sansa is the perfect prototype that will make Mama proud, and Arya's not. Arya's like that kid some parents are ashamed of, and that kid parents would like to um, be a certain way because society wants them to be that way and expects them to be that way, but she's completely not. And she doesn't want to be constrained and to put into the same cage her sister and the other ladies on the realm, on the seven kingdoms are being put. She wants to fight and she wants to do things that only boys and men are supposed to do. But that doesn't mean she isn't feeling like a female, or she is, I don't know, mm, a character that struggles with her own sexuality. It doesn't mean she is, even if she happened to be bisexual, which could be completely fine. Um, it's not a burden for her. What it's really a burden for her is that she is required to behave like a lady, and she doesn't like that, and she will never be good at that, because some people maybe they don't like to do certain things and to behave in a certain way, but they still can manage and can do that and can please the others. That of course will only make them more frustrated with themselves, because they are doing things and they are doing things fine, but they don't truly feel comfortable. Arya totally doesn't like it, and totally she's not good with it, and she refuses to keep trying to displease others. So at the beginning, she already has it rough because she cannot be, or they are not letting her be what she really wants to be and what she is really supposed to be. And the only people that kind of like accept her for what she is are her father, her bastard brother, Jon Snow, and perhaps Bran. Rickon is not quite much a likable kid at the time. So, talking about Ned Stark, her father, he accepts her like she is, but he also knows that she is supposed to become a lady. So, even if he doesn't want to pressure her much, he still urges her to behave more like a lady and to get along more, or get along because she doesn't get along much with her sister Sansa and Sansa's friends, and to take more example from them, even though he still doesn't want to oppress much her desires, and he's the one that gets her to do some lessons with the sword, some sword lessons. So yeah, the one that totally accepts her is truly Jon Snow. Jon Snow, it's not a shame of her at all. He respects her for what she is, and he even encourages her to pursue the things that she wants. And then there's Bran. Bran is a free spirit, so of course he gets along with her. But on the other hand, Bran feels a little bit threatened by Arya because Arya is better than him at certain areas that boys are supposed to be good at. And we see that on the series, on the TV series, on the first episode. So I don't think you can call Mary Sue a character that has it rock from that start, and that when shit starts to happen, she has to keep running away. Like, I know it turns out to be good, or it turns out to make good the people she encounters on the way. And in the end, those people help her. But at the beginning, the people that she encounters, they are not necessarily good, or they aren't friends from the start, or even she encounters enemies, and she also has to deal with that. And she learns from that people, but she also learns from herself. Aristarch is a character that carries on a big revenge burden on her shoulders. And the first thing she has to overcome is herself and that revenge thirst that she has. And not only she trains physically, but she also has to train and overcome herself mentally. So to say that such a character is a Marisu, it's truly just being a little spoiled brat that cannot accept a woman can get job done. And people started talking about that because on the last episode she got some job done. I'm not gonna go on as specifics because I don't want to spoil the series for anyone, or even the books if we ever get to read the books. And one of the things I wouldn't want to change in the books if we ever get the seventh book, the sixth and the seventh book done, is that part, because I thought it was one of the nicest things done in the narrative, and to me it really made sense. And maybe to some other people it didn't, but to me it made totally sense. And there's a thread that never breaks from the beginning to the end with this character that makes it nice to at least get her until that point. Now I don't know if she is going to get up into my expectations for what's coming next, but if she does, I won't find it's kind of contradictory with her character. Like, she's a fighter, she's somebody that tries to overcome herself, but also to get things done from the very beginning up till the very end. And calling such a character a Mary Sue, it's just being, I don't know, a crybaby, just because she's a girl, she wasn't supposed to blah 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 blah. I think one thing that G.R.R. Martin has done is to give us a nice variety of characters, whether they are female or male or whatever other things they are. Like, he gives us characters that have a lot of nuances, and they are flawed at some points. They are not super powerful characters, and not even Sansa can be called a Mary Sue. Like, even the most spoiled brat on the books, I want to make the difference. Sansa is totally not likable on the books up till book 5. She's not. Like, you expect that she starts kind of actually growing a brain starting on the sixth book, if that ever comes. But no, she's not likable at all. Like, she barely starts realizing what the situation is on book fourth and the fifth book. So no, no. And on the series she's completely different. Like, writers gave her a lot of depth and a lot of growth, and they actually gave her a nice brain. That's probably the result of the many situations and the many people she encounters on her journey. So yeah, she's just completely different, and I'm pretty sure that writers did that because the actress was good enough to give her that. But on books, she's almost as hateable as Joffrey is, if you know who Joffrey is. So yeah, no Mary Sue. That, like, I'm glad this. My I'm glad that people kind of started to fend in honor of Arya Stark's behalf, because she totally doesn't deserve that hashtag at all. And one of the things I said, that's why it blew up a little bit, is that she's the character that reminds me of Bruce Wayne the most. We discussed that at way before I had this conversation with that other friend telling me that he believes Arya is just a funny character and he doesn't like her too much because she got lucky all the time. It's like, um, one of my friends told me that he totally saw her as Batman. Like it's like she is the most similar character to Batman. It's like Martin wanted to create his own Batman on the story, and he just chose Arya to get that kind of profile. Like the vengeance thing is the most thing they got in common, and then I don't know about the comic books because there's a lot of comic book narratives regarding all the DC characters. But if we talk about the different movies that we've seen, perhaps I would say that she's more like the Christian Bale version of Batman, the Nolan movies. Like she trains and she totally goes through a journey to become something, but she's her motor is her vengeance, and at some point, at a certain point, she realizes she must overcome that motor because there are other things that are more important and that matter more than what she previously wanted to do, like to get revenge and certain things. So a lot of people told me like, and she's like Bruce Lee, and she's like another Bruce, and blah blah blah. I really don't know much about Bruce Lee. I don't know if people were about the way he talked and his martial arts, like how he displayed that on screen on set. I really don't know. I was talking more about this type of not just personality but motivation she has as a character, as well as how obscure she is. Like she's really a dark character. Among all the Starks, probably she's the darkest, and she's the one that really was settled to do the job she did on the last episode. So no complaints from my part. And now jumping on to the next subject is the Endgame movies. It's amazing. I just came from watching it for the second time, and there were people sobbing on the last part of the movie. Something happens, and there were people sobbing, literally sobbing for more than 5 minutes at a certain sequence and certain events happening. It's brilliant. I don't even remember when I started watching the movies. Um, I'm not even sure I started by watching the Iron Man. I started at the very beginning, but at the time I didn't have much time to go to the cinema, so most of those I watched them when they were released elsewhere to watch on small screen. So I do remember that we started going with a group of friends. By the time maybe the Thor movies, the first movie was released, it was around that area or era, either, or maybe it was the first of Captain America. I don't know. We kept going together to watch all the movies we could, and when we couldn't go together, we split in groups, or even we went, some of us alone, or we went by couples, like, hey, everybody already went but I haven't, and another friend told me, oh, I haven't either, so oh, let's go together tonight. Oh yes, let's go. So later on we just discussed that on different messenger applications. So so it's been something we experience as a group, even though most of the times we went alone on the cinema. And on the group, only a few of us actually followed all the TV series, starting from Shield, and then Agent Carter and the Netflix series. I probably am the only one of these few people in the group that since last year started pausing on the Netflix series. I have most of the series stopped and haven't even watched second season of Jessica Jones or others. Like the last I watched was The Defenders, and I still hadn't watched Iron Fist. And I started watching Iron Fist, and I had that kind of at the middle, I think. And I don't know, I get really lazy and I procrastinate a lot when it comes to watch series of any sorts. The only one I'm watching religiously is probably Marvel Agents of Shield, because I'm really addicted to that. It never disappointed me. A lot of people wanted it to be superhero type of series, and I really was craving for a spy sort of special agents series. So at the time, for me, it was the best, and it kept getting better because some weak points maybe at the beginning with the script writing kept getting better and getting stronger the more seasons we got. There was a season though that there was certain characters that should have finished that came back. That part was a little bit tiring and annoying, but in the end it made perfect sense for the whole MCU general story. So even though it was a little bit annoying to see certain characters go back on the TV screen, in the end it wasn't that much annoying because it made sense. And that's the thing of Endgame. Like, it's a lot of movies, but it's also a lot of TV time, not just Shield, also Agent Carter. The Netflix series, you can get them as a separate part of the universe. It's connected. They are on the same space and time altogether, but they are more on a ground base. Like, they're taking care of daily troubles of average people living there. And now that this phase phases, it's actually more than just one phase, but this first arc of phases is finishing and it's ended. um I really can't wait to see what's next. I know there's a Spider-Man movie coming, but really, what's the next plot, like the big plot that we will move forward? And also, I hope, like, I know a few series have been cancelled, not just Shield will be cancelled after this season, but also some of the Netflix series. Like, I really hope that they could get through certain differences they had with the different teams and blah blah blah, and started ignoring one another, even though they still had to commit to certain argument points. And that we could see, even though they say we would never see that, I think some of the TV characters truly deserve to transcend to the cinema part of the cinematic universe. Like, there's a bunch of Shield characters, as well as, I'm not talking about Asian character because we all know this is a character in the past. Like, if you get, not the timeline we get the movies, like the timeline of the universe of this Marvel cinematic universe, she's a character that's already in the past. But a few of the characters from either Shield or the Netflix series, mostly secondary characters, it would be nice if they transcended. Like, some people have been requesting for an all-female Marvel movie, and they tend to forget most of the most amazing characters are from the TV series, and most of the powerful and badass female characters are either on the Netflix series or on Agents of Shield. And I wouldn't, if that would happen, I wouldn't like to miss on a certain characters, especially after we got scammed with Marvel Most Wanted. That's one of the biggest scams, if you've been a fan of this universe, that we ever got. And I know a few people that still watch the series and are also hardcore fans of reading the comics, and they know a lot of stuff about the comics, they were looking forward to that twice, and we got scammed twice. And on the second time, it was really bad because those two characters um, that were supposed to lead those new series were scrapped off the main series, the Agents of Shield. And even though they tried to bring them back on a couple of seasons later, it wasn't the same thing, and they weren't going to be that much integrated in the storylines. So yeah, we got scammed twice, and the second time it really hurt badly. I would love to see Mockingbird um, co-starring in a all female Marvel movies. Like the most we got to see is Maria Hill going one way or the other, and we barely got to see anything else except for Agent Carter, of course. But yeah, that would be nice. Like we're looking forward to a lot of the things that can happen from now on, from the characters that will stay, like more than talking about being dead or alive, which was one of the most discussed things before Endgame and even before the other movie, the other Avengers, the Infinity Stones movie was released. It was, oh, who is going to live and who is going to die. I think that more than that, it's who is going to stay and who is going to retire, maybe from the franchises. So because it's not just a franchise, it's a lot of franchises. So yeah, that would be nice, having an all-female Marvel movie, and I would totally watch that. Like I will keep going to the movies as long as they keep writing brilliantly like they did. Like the whole Infinity Stones plot was beautifully done, even though there are probably plot holes in all the different movies. Of course, sometimes we even experienced um, characters being recasted, and that sometimes it's a little bit confusing, or even, I don't know, I won't say upsetting or annoying, but it sometimes doesn't help the story, and sometimes it does, like it happened with Mark Ruffalo and Hulk being recast. But yeah, like I enjoyed the movie so much, I went again. That's not something I usually do, go twice to see a movie on the theater. And it's really nicely done. Like for me, the first time and the second time around, more than just um getting emotional at certain moments because this character is doing this or this character is doing that, it's because a lot of the funny and the usual ironic and sarcasm humor that Marvel has on this cinematic universe, moments that were shown on the previous movies have their tie in into this Endgame movie. Like there's a lot of things that go on the dialogues and on the sequences that refer to a certain movie back on time, like back in the time. So it's a huge experience if you've been watching all the movies, because there are certain things most of us are emotionally attached to, because we kept thinking about theories or about what could happen if, and I would like to discuss that in a month or so when it's almost safe to not spoil the movie for anybody. If you haven't gone to watch it, I recommend it. It's 3 hours, it's so long, I know, but you won't realize 3 hours are passing by. And it's not an intense movie per se. It's not like watching the second movie of Lord of the Rings, or the Battle of Winterfell from 2 days ago. It, different things happen on the movie. It's not just a long sequence of trying to do things and getting to the final point and climax, and then there's a conclusion. No, there's a lot more different things happening on the second part of the Infinity Stones movie arc. And yeah, it's one one of a kind. It's not like you've been watching, I don't know, Star Wars, and all the movies have, they form, they are part of a huge different line of storytelling, but all the movies have almost the same type of starting, development, and climax, conclusion. No, that there's a lot more before climax and conclusion, and after conclusion there's even a little bit more. So I totally recommend people to go watch that on the theaters. And if it's possible, when we have everything on Blu-ray or DVD or streaming platforms, doing a marathon would be super long, but also super exciting to do. Even if you mix certain Agents of Shield episodes, would be fine. You could even mix a couple, or even 4 or 5 episodes of Agent Carter, and the story would even have more sense at the end when you're watching the last movie and the last parts of the last movie. It has a lot of parts in it. And now it's the next subject that I want to talk. If you like uh, Game of Thrones and you like Marvel, you can leave now. That's even less unrelated than the two first subjects. At least we could talk about two characters from both type of products, like Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, and Marvel, like related to the Mary Sue subject. Uh, we have Captain Marvel or Arya Stark. Now it's completely unrelated, so you can leave, especially if you have no idea what um, Asian idols or Japanese idols are, and what MNL48 are. This is for my 48 group fans, if there's still any that want to support them. So post Mahohon, post Mahohon case, backlash keep happening, but now we are going to the Philippines group franchise, the sister group in Philippines. Um, while we were all upset and fighting against AKS and the NGT48 management, um, this was already happening. So different people already told me about that. Like my friends told me, like, have you heard what they want to do with the Manila girls? Like, if they don't get a certain amount of votes on the Nexus Senkyu, they are going to be cut, which means drop. So they have to leave the group. Like, what's that? And I totally recalled different crap that Star 48, the Chinese company, has done during the last years. Like, everything is always the company's fault. I'm going to analyze both cases because they have a lot of similarities. In the case of Star 48, after they split, after they were expelled from the family, like, yeah, they're allowed to keep doing stuff on the 48 group style, and they keep paying royalties anyway because they keep using songs and other things. But after that happened and that they cut ties with the AKB48 groups, um, they also kind of cleansed or purged the group for no other reason that it wasn't going well financially. So they needed to let certain girls go because they couldn't pay all of them. Of course, the Manila thing for me it's exactly the same as this case, but also as the recent most recent case that they had to scrap two or three groups that they created after they split because those groups weren't successful, but also mostly the reason was because those groups were in areas that are still on recession. They are on a financial crisis, so there's no way people are going to spend their spare money into going to those theaters. One was Shenyang, and the other region never get the name right. And I'm not sure there was a third region that was got the group right now. But if you go to Star 48, the stage 48, the wiki, you will probably get that information if you um, browse and if you search on the Star 48 groups starting from SNH 48, you probably get which are the past sister groups, the ones that have been completely scrapped. So it's exactly the same situation. They created the group in the Philippines, in Manila, and they didn't plan it well. When last year I was kind of looking for information because I wasn't sure, and suddenly I saw that they were doing a Susenkyo for Manila, and it was like, whoa, wasn't this group still holding auditions or something? And they are already doing the general election. And then I saw that they were doing that and creating the teams at the same time, and it was like, this is crazy. Like, how do you start by creating all the teams if you don't even know if this is going to work? Like, they are not learning anything from Jakarta's crisis, which is it isn't exactly the same, but they are in a position now that there's a generational change, and a lot of fans have left, and now they have all the groups, all the teams created, and they have to survive. They have to maintain that, and at the same time, um, keep being successful by releasing stuff and on their kind of single and album releases. They need to maintain this success in order to continue existing. How do you create the whole 48 group with three teams at once before even debuting? Like, this is crazy, taking in so many girls before you even know if you can maintain this, if you can actually make them successful. First you need to try. Like, this is not how AKB48 was created, and I think it's for a reason that they weren't created that way. And also it took time and different strategies to make the main group, like the first group, successful. How do you go by that? If Philippines were a country where AKB48 was super popular, it still would make sense that you suddenly go and create the three teams and get those bunch of girls um, all at once and put them on the star system. But it isn't. Like, anytime I interact or I read any comments in YouTube or in Twitter, any other platform coming from Filipino fans, they always explain that J-pop is not that popular there and not that known, and people are most into K-pop than any other Asian type of pop. That's not um that's not Philippines music or pop or whatever you have there. So it's crazy to suddenly go by that, especially when it's well known that international fans tend to misunderstand and bash anything that's J-pop, and especially anything that's idol J-pop. So you first need to try. You first need to see what works for you. What can you adapt from AKB48 system into your own country and the girls that you select to do that? How come you suddenly make three teams and debut them all at once? That's crazy. Of course, a year later, even though the group kind of got better and maybe got more fans than the previous, I won't say backlash, but those kind of awful comments they had at the beginning when they started doing the selection and the general election, and when they kind of announced they will have the pen light and people bash them because they are kind of not debuted yet. How come they have a pen light? Because of course people don't understand what J-pop is about. They think it's K-pop, or they're trying to copy K-pop. So you first need to fight against that and present the product and make people understand we are going to do that in that way. Then you start growing, and you do completely the opposite. You just go and and put it there, and let the people fight for you. And now you're telling these girls that if they don't get enough votes, they go out, they must leave. And not only that, they go and they want to milk till the last moment, so they're going to do a graduation concert for the girls. It's nice that they get to say farewell to the fans on one hand. On the other, it's just another way to make money out of the situation. It is completely shameless. And we are not on the best moment as 48 group fans. We are truly mad at what happened with Maho and what happened with the way they handle things. As especially after Ukraine finally talk, and especially when Sashi Hara, that already did the graduation concert, had to specify on social networks that the goods from her concert were completely produced by her people, that the money is not going to AKS. And she said that because of the Mahon case, because she knows people are boycotting AKS. So we are not on the best state of mind and heart to actually accept what the management and the company behind Manila 48, MNL48, are doing right now. It's bizarre. And if you happen to be like me and you never split and walked away from the Star 48 groups, you're even more infuriated because they have an example that's really bad and they just follow that example. They should have never created the three teams at once. They should have do the show and selected the Kenkyusei and stayed, I don't know, 3 months or even 6 months with the Kenkyusei. And they should have tried something that it's not that common in Japan, like some Kenkyusei have done, but it's not that common in Japan. But in the K-pop industry, has worked a few times, and do, I don't know, some pre-release, like some pre-debuting songs in digital, like just release a couple of digital singles that are pre-release songs, and make those songs be, I don't know, versions from stage songs, not sorry, how to lower my nose, not just I don't know, not don't go for b-sides or for title tracks that AKB48 on or any other sister group has released. Just go for any stage song that's iconic and that you can adjust for the Kenkyusei. Okay, not the team, the Kenkyusei. And after 3 or 6 months, you, since you have this contract with the TV program and you are doing things through that TV station, in a few months, after 3 or 6 months, you make a survival to select the members that are going to form Team M. And that provides you a narrative to keep audiences hooked on. If you had worked that way, not just hurrying up to make three teams all together at once in a general election, that's having all the concepts mixed all at once and not properly understood by anybody, not the staff, not the potential fans, or even the people that already know what AKB48 is. Not anybody. Not even the audiences that can drop by just because they know the TV station, just turn on the TV and that's popping up. So that's how they could have worked. Like you first do a selection of Kenkyusei and then you form a team. And with the remaining Kenkyusei, you can do a second audition and get more Kenkyusei, integrate that. And once you have the first team selected and the Kenkyusei, after 3 other months, you can do another selection for the debut single. I said selection, not election. Okay? You just do that. That should have been, I don't know, the most smart thing to do, or the wisest thing to do. But it's because it should have been the most basic thing to do. It's not like you have to get a brilliant brain. It's just that you study how AKB48 and the other sister groups in Japan and the overseas groups have worked, and you have to adjust to your own country and the possibilities you have. And the situation with Philippines is that you first need to make people know what it is, AKB48 and its system, and what it is to be J-pop. And you could have done so if you had done it that way, just doing pre-release, like pre-debuted songs released digitally, and just playing a little bit with the survival concept, giving the girls challenges and giving the girls different, I don't know, chores to interact with the audiences through the survival show, and also taking them on the streets like AKB48 group style, like doing handshakes and everything, while you still haven't the group debuted as such, and with just one team created after a certain period of time, after people have get to know the girls. And considering that from the moment they created the teams and did the general election up till uh, I won't say half a year later, maybe 9 months later, like people, not just fans, people that had been in touch with what Manila 48 were, had seen the girls grow and their skills being polished and more potential than they saw at the beginning, when most of the girls were being bashed by the general audiences watching the show, and even aunties watching the show. Like you get the same progress if you just did it the way I say it. Like you see the girls getting polished eventually and in a progressive way if you start by selecting Kenkyusei and going to the process to form a team together with the audience that watches the show, and then you walk towards releasing the first single, and you do a senbatsu, you do an election between the official members and the Kenkyusei that are there. You give change to the members, and you do that, and you debut the group, and you start with a single, and probably you would have more people backing you and going to purchase the song if you had done it that way, not rushing the way you did. That's crazy. And if they didn't rush, probably at this rate, like a year later, instead of talking about the second general election and cleansing the group from the members that they cannot maintain, we would still be talking about forming the second team, forming Team N, and going for, I don't know, the third single or even the second, I don't know, because I'm more for having pre-debut digital singles than actually rushing into that. Like in the end, what you want is to make money, so you have to look for alternative ways to make money before venturing to actually launch a single that takes a lot of money to produce and to release. Like you go guerrilla style, doing things that you can actually afford while you keep fulfilling the contract you sign with the TV station that's behind the project of MNL48. I don't know who were the people that were behind the way of developing the group, but they did it the worst way possible. They totally didn't study all the possibilities market wise and product wise and musically wise. They didn't. Like they just kept, I don't know, guessing, and the only things that they started guessing better than the others was what type of songs we can give our girls that will work better than any other sister group overseas or in Japan. So that's the only thing that they kept getting a little bit right. And because fans were complaining about how underproduced their videos were, like the quality was really poor, they probably spent a lot of money to make the last videos look better and better produced, and they probably didn't have that money to do so. So that's another risk. That's another financial risk. So in the end, because people wanted better produced videos, that came on the expense of the girls. Like now you don't have money to keep as many girls as you had. And that would have never happened if you hadn't took as many girls on the first place. Like just don't get this many girls from the beginning. Just keep adding them gradually and keep kind of letting the audiences get attached to them and keep going slowly. Not even Bangkok is going that fast. And Bangkok could have started running from the moment they hit the jackpot when they released Fortune Cookie, even though they weren't expected that and they were really afraid because they were really risking it financially. They were risking the group to disappear. But they were wiser than than actually Manila have been. I don't think any of the overseas groups have been that, I don't know, kamikaze. Probably not even TPE that ended up becoming Team TP. Like probably the way what why they went bankrupt hadn't even anything to do because they hadn't even formed any team at that moment. They were just kind of went bankrupt for whatever reason, but they were still working on that, on the progress to make the group and make it debut. And yes, like it would surely taken 3 4 years to get the three teams done, the three basic teams done. I remind people that AKB48 has 4 teams. One of the teams has 47 members or is supposed to have 47 members, and the other groups don't mimic that. The other groups don't have more than just the 3 teams that are behind the letters that compose the respective names. And Star 48 works separately. They got a team X and a team I don't know what. I don't remember now. But yeah, it's different. So yeah, like of course fans are upset, and I would love for the staff to rectify what they did and not drop the girls. But I also understand they messed up big time financially, and that they had no other choice but to do that. And it's sad. It's sad because it's all their fault, but in the end, the girls are paying for their own incompetence, and it's really sad. And now I'm moving it on to the next subject. That's really quick because I certainly don't know much. I read a few months ago that Yasushi Akimoto, Aki-P, was in works of producing a new group, but honestly, he creates so many things at once that one cannot keep track of it. And I was already too much into the Mahohon case and maybe other stuff. And yeah, the group I have here, the tweet name would be the Coin Lockers. It's supposed to be formed by 39 girls. That's the short of J-pop Project News, the Twitter. And there will be 9 members appearing on the first single that is supposed to be released in June. And the fans will be able to select 7 of the 9 members appearing on the coupling song using Showroom. Like she's going to use Showroom as the platform to, I don't know, get the 39 girls introduced probably. So people watching and wanted to get attached and become a fan can select the girls. Um, I don't know what type of music they are supposed to be. I don't know. It will be traditional idol style. By the way they are dressed, they look like they will be more in between what Hello Project or even E-Girls are. So I don't know. We will have to wait and see. The thing I'm talking about that is because, of course, I would be excited if it wasn't for what happened with Maho. I know that Akimoto is not running AKS anymore, but still, he was too much lukewarm about the subject, and he spoke little, which also affects the way I aim to support the 46 groups a bit. I turned down onto retweeting any stuff related to anything. And yeah, probably eventually we will heal a little bit and we will be able to keep supporting other groups that are in NGT48, of course. Like it's really unforgivable what they did, but also because they keep insisting that what was wrong it was Maho and her friends. The only thing I want to say about this subject is that the Entertainment Association is supposedly discussing on whether take measures and study this case so they can take measures to uh, ensure the safety of the girls on the idol industry. Like there will be probably more things surfacing soon, but right now what people is busy with is that it's the first day on the new era in Japan of the Reiwa era. So uh, probably if we get to know anything about it, it won't be this week or the next one, it will be later on. I hope they do study the case and they fail on Maho's favor and they enforce new laws and new rules that constrain management and companies of not abusing their power, but also of being punished and fined if they kind of fail to protect the members, like it happened with Maho's case. And probably I would try to talk about Maho no Maho's case and Rico and Arena if we get to know about them later on this year. I know there's a lot of Japanese fans that would love for the three girls to keep on the idol activities, and that they've been talking about um, the tiny possibility that if they form a unit, the three of them, they would probably have a lot of fans supporting them. Well, right now, I think these three girls, what they want is a little peace of mind and to get some time, but also we don't know what sort of contract they have with AKS. Even if they have been forced to graduate, most likely they will be bind to the company for 2 3 more years, which is what happens with girls that graduate, unless they had been completely dropped and all ties had been cut. So we really don't know. Like I would love for it, but what I would love the most is for justice to be served and them to be safe mentally and physically. So probably that's all I wanted to talk about today. Um, I don't think there's any more things I want to discuss. There's somebody, yeah. It keeps it keeps blowing. Yeah, the other Bruce, like coming back to the first topic, Bruce Leroy. I'm not familiar with Bruce Leroy, or probably because it looks really old. I don't remember. There's a lot of stuff from the 1980s I don't remember, especially because at that time you most likely got to watch stuff once in a VHS tape, or it didn't get to your country at all. Like the magic of internet brought us together and brought us closer than we were before. Like that's why we can discuss stuff like Japanese idol groups from the other side of the planet. And yeah, I know I had something else around my mind. Oh yeah, I wanted to. That's not on the hashtags. If anybody has more information on this Battle of Junior Exile, completely unrelated to AKB48 or any idol group, that's LDH, please let me know, because LDH is not explaining much on it. They are only explaining on the live shows and that they will release kind of a mini album and which groups are involved in that, like becoming the Junior Exile thing. That's something I don't know exactly what's the purpose. Like they are all supposed to be Exile Tribe, and I don't know if we will see anything this year. Probably next year. That it's supposed to be another perfect year for the LDH groups, Exile related groups. But yeah, I don't know if they're trying, I don't know, to make a second Exile. Like Junior Exile was the term the Projectile kids were labeled under when they were kind of, I cannot say promoting, when they were training and doing something similar to Musho Shugyo, but in the States. And now the name is being used. Uh, I don't want to say to label all the existing junior groups. If we can say junior groups, probably we would talk starting with generations to all the groups that debuted afterwards, age wise and music style wise. They are more targeted to a teen, really young audience, as opposed to Sunday Meiji, Soul Brothers, and Exile, and of course Exile the Second, which are just members of Exile, by the way. So yeah, I don't know if they want to make, I don't know, a second exile, call it junior exile, selecting members of those four groups: Generations, The Rampage, Fantastics, and Ballistic Boys, that at the same time are supposed to be straightly managed by Doberman Infinity, who are the honorary members of Exile Tribe. They are, but they aren't Exile Tribe. Not exactly, but they are part of the family anyway. So this is really confusing. If anybody has more information or has delivered more about it, please let me know on my Twitter or even here if you watch later the YouTube. Please let me know because it's super confusing. It's more confusing than when they started doing versus with the Exile Tribe. That they never continued, by the way. They only did the Sunday Majeso Brothers versus Generation One. They went straight to do Exile Tribe singles and albums. It was a mini album anyway later, so so it's super confusing. um I'm supposed to keep writing on LDH, at least in Spanish, this year. And the only thing I can think about is how much I want to procrastinate on that, because there's a lot of information from the last issue I did. It's, I think the last issue was a high and low issue, and yeah, that was already confusing enough because I only got to watch the first series and I completely got lost on the second series. And someone kindly gave me the summary and the information for the second series, so that person was credit on that issue anyway. And yeah, and there's the English Tumblr I have completely abandoned because it takes a lot of time to translate, but also a lot of time to publish, to put everything on the Tumblr with photos and videos and blah blah blah. And yeah, right now I have all the Chinese series I was watching on a, yeah, hiatus. I stopped watching them in the aim of keep watching them, but right now it's like I had a lot of stuff happening last week, especially last Saturday, so I had to hold on that. And unfortunately, at least one of the series I was watching slowly, really slowly, because I enjoy it so much, I like to watch an episode or two every once in a while, has been geoblocked. That sucks picky when you geoblock stuff that was available. When something is unavailable, okay, I cannot watch it. Okay, I can deal with it. But when you were watching a series and you were watching it slowly and suddenly this gets kind of geo-blocked and you have to request for it again, and probably it won't get unblocked because you are the only person requesting on that area or on that region to get the series. Why? That was 3 heroes and 5 gallons. And that makes me think about that. Yes, the Game of Thrones last episode probably was truly the longest and the most expensive battle ever filmed on TV, but I would gladly um, and kindly suggest people on media writing about TV to remember that not everything is about American TV. And sometimes you talk about a lot of stuff happening for the first time in Western TV that maybe sometimes other countries already did. Like there's a lot of Chinese drama with high techniques. I don't know how to say it. High definition and highly produced. Even the CGI doesn't suck. Battle sequences and scenes don't. And then there's really crappy ones too, of course. But yeah, sometimes one gets the feeling that until Game of Thrones, nothing epic like that was done on TV, and then you stumble on a bunch of Chinese dramas from all times that had already done that in a certain way. And sometimes the level of CGI is the same quality. Sometimes it's not that crappy. So yeah, I would be glad if they stopped ignoring other medias. And I've seen Chinese TV. Probably I'm missing other parts of the world. And before I finish, if you got through here and you are from Indonesia, I tweeted about that before, but people here are not believing that 296 people died on the counting ballots process due to exhaustion. Like those news were published somewhere in an outlet here, and they were kind of reposted on Facebook, and most people commenting on that cannot believe that. I forgot to comment that at least in Japan there's a word, there's a verb to describe dying from exhaustion from work. So knowing that you guys were requesting a few weeks ago on Twitter to please get the attention so you could get international observers, like go there and observe the elections because you were afraid some stuff could get tampered with. Um, I believe that being one of the highest populated countries, it's possible that if you have to count all the votes manually and you don't take any breaks, don't drink, don't eat, it's possible that you die from exhaustion. Why not? Yeah, and it's possible that 296 people die from that. For me, it's totally believable. So I would love if any of you guys, I know some people watch me from there, could confirm on the news. That's really sad, and I cannot say heartbreaking. It's terrifying to know that people had to die in order to count votes. Well, I hope that didn't happen. That's really hard to take on if I had to put it in any way. And regarding what you guys were requesting a few weeks ago on Twitter, I hope you had a fair election despite of everything. That's what anybody deserves. Yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to say. um 1 hour 22 minutes. I've been watching Endgame for 3 hours, and that's that's all. Yeah, I'm about to die from the allergy. Thank you. Now it's time for my pill. And yeah, Arya is not a Mary Sue. If you truly know what a Mary Sue is, she definitely isn't one. If you still she's one, you still believe she's one. We haven't been watching the same series, and you probably haven't been reading the books either. She's lucky sometimes, yes and no. Most of the time, she's not lucky, but because she's strong and she knows to adjust and adapt to the situation, she learns to survive. So I wouldn't say she's lucky. Like that friend I know tried to tell me a few years ago. And yeah, Endgame, beautiful screenwriting. It makes people emotional in a lot of points. Hopefully, we will get to discuss this in a month or so. Now, let people watch spoiler free broadcast. And I just can't hope for what's next. And when I say what's next, I don't just mean the upcoming movies like the second movie of Spider Man. I mean, what's really next on the next phases? Where are we going to? And I will get more into that in a month or so because I want to talk more into the cinematic universe. I'm gonna say I'm not an expert on the comics. I used to read certain comics, and I never kind of got too much farther into analyzing the comics universe that much, except for X-Men at a certain per- period, and that was kind of 2 decades ago. So there's nothing that I can know from the most recent storylines or universes attached to X-Men, except for the movies. And the Manila thing, it sucks. They should have learned. They shouldn't have done this. They should know better. They should have learned from what Star 48 did with Shanghai. And it sucks. And it's only their fault. And sadly and unfortunately, probably the only way is really to let the girls go. But it's really infuriating. So yes, keep the banding for what you want to fight for, which is uh, trying to get the organization not drop these girls. And yeah, if you know better about what LDH is doing with the junior exile battles, please let me know because it's so much confusing to me. Aki-P's new group. Let's see what happens. Right now, I don't feel like supporting anything related to that, even though I'm not disconnecting completely. Of course, I'm an entertainment junkie, if you want to say it like that. Especially if it's J-pop related, I'm an entertainment junkie. But yes, in the end, nobody wants the girls to suffer from any group, and that's just another project. 39 girls. Oh my god, that's a lot. I don't know if people are going to boycott or not, but they are not supposed to be directly related to NGT48 or anything AKS directly related. So hopefully it would just be like me that you don't know if whether to support them or not. Just don't boycott. Just do your thing. And I think that's all. Yeah, I'm gonna leave. Bye.